Leader of the Proud Boys, Enrique Tarrio, 22 years in prison for January 6th. Here's the interesting thing. He was not even in Washington, D.C. at the time. He was in Baltimore. But because he was texting some of his Proud Boy members who had no plans to invade the Capitol, who didn't even know where they were meeting there that day, according to Joe Biggs, he's getting 22 years. Joe Biggs, 17 years. Does that seem fair? For what, a few broken windows and an invasion into the Capitol? Okay, maybe they deserve a year. Maybe a year and a half, 2 years, to let people know never to do it again. But you just look at the disparity in sentencing. You had in Minnesota a BLM activist that burned down a pawn shop with somebody in it, committed arson and murder. How long did he get? 10 years. And the woke U.S. attorney at that time wrote that because he did it in the name of racial justice and had his fist raised in the communist Black Lives Matter sign, that he should get special dispensation in terms of his sentencing. 17 years for Joe Biggs for shaking the gate, maybe knocking it over and entering into the Capitol. And a black rapist gets months, not years, in prison.
A half year.
For rape. All the Proud Boys that could have been arrested 2 years ago, they're having the trials now because they are reminding the scared Americans about the great fear that they must have, the great threat that the Proud Boys, that right-wingers offer. Why do you think that they waited all this time? This is 2 years later. They're going around and making these people's lives living hell because they stood up for something that they believed in. Meanwhile, Black Lives Matter gets celebrated. And in Denver, they got a multi-million-dollar settlement for 300 protesters because their free speech was violently suppressed. I'm sorry, free speech does not include burning down buildings. I guarantee you that any officer during that time would have allowed you to hold up your sign, to walk peacefully in the streets. But that's not what happened. And that's when the cops might have gotten slightly rough, but not like what they're doing to the January 6th protesters. Oh no, do the same thing as BLM, get a payout. Be on the right side of the political aisle, go to jail for 17 years. Again, this is dividing the nation. I mean, what are you to do? I personally am not living in America because I see it going downhill. I left California. When coming back into the nation for the first time in a year, I saw my neighborhood in decline. We're looking for housing at extremely high prices versus the quality of house that you're able to buy. And I just told my wife, I think we're done here in LA after being there for 17 years. And I'm telling you, the same thing is happening in the United States. They want the tension. They want that ignition. And they're just waiting for somebody to act out so that they can prove Joe Biden and all of his puppets correct when they say that domestic right-wing extremism is the biggest threat to the United States of America. BS. It's the Marxists that are burning it down and giving disproportionate sentences. How do you prosecute Kyle Rittenhouse for defending himself against two Antifa sex offenders that attacked him? He defended himself and you prosecute him. Everybody in Kenosha destroyed the place. And over what? Over a felon who had a rap sheet a mile long, who was dying of a fentanyl overdose, and a cop happened to put his knee on the neck. Looks really bad. Got to admit that. I thought it was murder when I saw it too. Then you realize all the details, and they just did this to destroy the nation because they were mad that Donald Trump won. These people are destroying America, and it makes me sad because I'm proud of my country. I was born in the greatest country on earth that gives the greatest amount of opportunity to people. And Black Americans in our great nation earn much more than anybody else out in the rest of the world, save maybe for Western Europe, and much more than anybody in Africa. That is the freedom and the economic opportunity that our nation offers, and it is being destroyed, being sucked dry by these vampire leftists that give disproportionate sentences, that seek out the Proud Boys 2 years after the events and are arresting them and hauling them into court to remind everybody of the threat of January 6th that they played out, that they likely knew was coming because they had people embedded into the Proud Boys. Meanwhile, Ray Epps, who tried to incite people into the Capitol.
Tomorrow, we need to
to go into the Capitol. Into the Capitol.
Is still running free, I think, or at least he was for a long, long time. I think now maybe they've been forced to arrest him because too many people are asking questions. If that actually did happen, it's evil is what it is. And there's no way around it. And I would love it if somebody could disprove that in the comment section. Please, lefties, somebody on that side of the aisle that I used to be on, tell me what I'm getting wrong here, because I'm absolutely disgusted by it. This nation will not survive this. The threads that unite us are being intentionally severed. I don't know whether it's on China's behest or whether it's just the Marxists that have taken over the institutions that are just a cancer on the nation. And it is dying, and fast. And it makes me sad to see this eagle that I love so dearly fall out of the sky and onto the cold, hard ground, never to rise again. God, I hope I'm